A cracked power awakens. He bodies any monster dumb enough to cross his path. For years he was the village guardian, but the people he swore to protect turned their backs on him, tossed in chains just for some cheap bounty. Then, when a whole army of creatures swarms the town, watching the chaos unfold with a cold smirk. But the world shifted, enemy levels spiked, and the old methods failed. To make it out, he embraces a forbidden technique. Dark magic that pushes his mind right to the brink. This new power boils and burns under his skin. And that's where it gets crazy. He turns that nightmare into pure brute force. Going from betrayed prisoner to the Empire's most wanted fugitive, up against colossal beasts and fake gods. Get ready to see how he became the most OP hunter ever. Sprinting through a burning city, a guy with an axe drags his daughter along, yelling that everyone's lost their minds. Terrified, the little girl asks where they're heading and why so many people are screaming. He promises to get her somewhere safe, adding that their only shot is freeing a monster locked up nearby. Right then, they hit a massive gate covered in chains, and the dad gears up to smash it open and let out whoever's inside. Swinging the axe with all his might, the man strikes the heavy chains, but a spear suddenly pierces him from behind, making the poor guy cry out from the cowardly sneak attack. Wounded as he is, he refuses to go down. With his last ounce of energy, he grabs the metal links and snaps them through pure brute force. He shoves the door open and tells the kid to run inside, though she freezes, worried about how badly he's hurt. Yelling at her to stop asking questions, the dad orders her to find the chained man way in the back. Inside the pitch-black room, the frightened kid bumps into a foot and a chain, realizing she found her target. And just like that, everything changed. She spots a guy bound to a chair, while her dad shouts from outside that only Dingvolder can save them. Our boy opens his eyes and, with a cold glare, asks why on earth he should help anyone. For 3 whole years he guarded that village, yet the locals chose to listen to some sketchy missionary instead. Not holding back, he points out they were the ones who locked him up just to score some bounty money. Flexing a menacing aura, he shatters his bindings and glares at the dad, calling out his nerve for begging for help now. Speechless, the man still manages to warn him that something is blocking the door from the inside. Suddenly, several spikes pierce the guy from behind, making him cry out in agony. He collapses to the floor, gone, while our MC just watches it all with a careless little smirk. Peeking through a hole in the door from outside, an eye celebrates hitting the mark as blood pools out. 2 freaky tentacle monsters try to force their way in, fighting over who gets to taste the blood first. Down on his knees, the dad admits he was a fool for falling for that missionary's lies. Sobbing heavily, he begs Volder not to hold his own mistakes against the little girl. He drags himself forward and pleads for his kid's survival, while she panics seeing her dad in such bad shape. Driven by desperation, he raises his blade and shouts that he'll pay the price himself. Volder lets out a sigh, finding the whole scene unnecessary, and snatches the weapon from the weakened guy's grip. Meanwhile, the heavy wooden door starts splintering from the pressure of the monsters outside. The gate finally caves in, letting a horde of freaky beasts storm the place, thirsty for a fight. Turning to the mob, Volder reminds them he warned them ages ago not to trust that fake prophet. Just look at the result. That so-called gospel mutated all of them into these deformed creatures. He raises his blade and announces that, even though they can't understand a word anymore, he's laying down the rules. The message is simple. Anyone who backs off right now gets to walk away. But the mob ignores the warning completely and charges in, screeching vile things about the little girl. Catching their reflection in his blade, Volder drops the final ultimatum. Take one more step, and it's over. Without a second of hesitation, the beasts lunge at him, completely out of their minds. This is where it gets good. Our MC strikes with a single motion, way too fast for the eye to catch. The first slash takes down one of the monsters before it even registers what hit it. Spinning his body, he unleashes a flurry of strikes, slicing through anyone dumb enough to stand in his way. One of the beasts tries taking a bite out of him, only to catch cold steel right to the mouth. With a dead serious look, he keeps up the beatdown without showing a single drop of emotion. He stops a massive brute using just his blade, making the wall behind the beast crack from the sheer impact. The brawl stays fast and frantic, with him leaping and slashing, painting the whole room red. Spotting a few familiar faces in the crowd, our boy realizes they're nothing but soulless monsters now. He suddenly remembers these wine barrels with weird symbols on them, guessing they caused this whole mutation. With his sword ringing out, he slices down another enemy, while the kid's dad stays slumped in the back. His blade completely shatters the barrels. Splashing everywhere, the liquid from inside washes right over the creatures. Right then, it becomes crystal clear that one wrong mindset can drive any anybody to complete madness. Our Proto actually sparks his blade against the heavy chain still wrapped around his arm. Fiery lotus flowers light up across the floor, proving his one-man show has only just begun. A two-headed freak starts panicking the second it sees the flames. Blazing bright, the fire starts consuming everything, proving their chosen path only leads to ruin. After completely wiping the floor with them, our MC pulls a crushed cigarette out of his pocket. He lights it up and stares at a charred monster, muttering that he laid down the rules and nobody listened. Looking pretty bleak, he actually regrets not stepping in sooner to stop this whole disaster. Our boy walks over to the dad's body, and the little girl asks why he stopped talking. Gripping her hand, Balder tells a white lie, saying her dad went on a trip to somewhere beautiful and far away. The kid asks if they're going too, and he nods, but adds that her dad is just getting there first. Out of nowhere, a voice calls his name, catching our boy off guard when he recognizes the tone. And that's where it gets crazy. A massive creepy mouth demands to know how he dared to wipe out its followers. He spins around and spots the guy stepping right out of the mouth. It's that sketchy missionary, Simel. Smirking, Simel says that if Volder isn't a fan of the gospel, he really ought to sit and listen. With a completely unhinged look, Simel steps closer and invites our guy for a little chat. A hidden document reveals the real scheme. The target is actually Simel, who used cash and lies to bait Volder in. Our boy tucks the girl behind his back and warns her to stay put, but she randomly tells him her name is Yezi. Playing dumb, Simel claims he was just handing out a blessing to the village traders. Furious, the Proto rushes forward with sword in hand, ready to shut this scumbag up for good. He shouts that this ain't no blessing and swings at the guy, who just blocks the strike with a book. The missionary laughs in his face, asking if he seriously thinks a sword is enough to take out a bishop. Bragging about serving some overpowered entity, he warns that certain things can't be put down by simple blades. He adds that by the time Volder figures out the truth, it's gonna be too late, as tentacles burst from the ground. The strikes come swinging hard, but our boy dodges every single one, trying to figure out what kind of crack technique this is. Whipping out a potion, he lays down the facts. If an enemy bleeds, they can be dealt with. Then, he lobs the flask straight at the target, hyping it up as the Gugu brand bomb potion. The whole thing blows up into a giant green cloud, making even our Proto complain that the smoke effect is a bit overkill. Coughing his lungs out, Simel stumbles from the smoke and complains about the rotten egg smell of that expired mix. Volder smirks that playing dirty clearly works, but the missionary cuts him off, saying there's a catch. Before the villain can even finish his sentence, our boy jams his blade right into him to shut him up. Yanking the steel back out, he tells him to save the chit-chat for his next life, and already starts planning to skip town. Right then, the leftover monsters stumble closer and actually call out his name, leaving the hunters super confused. Dropping to their knees, they beg for forgiveness for being so greedy and plead with him to save the city. Simel's hand suddenly twitches in the blood pool, croaking out that Volder could never actually win. The clown stands back up fully regenerated and asks how you're supposed to kill a belief, trying to mess with our Proto's head. Unbothered, our boy just watches his bizarre scene play out and complains about how clingy and annoying this dude is. Simel easily sidesteps another strike, bragging that he was only playing around because he knew Volder was built different. Out of nowhere, several shadow clones of our boy attack all at once, dicing up those red tentacles. He completely shatters the villain's guard, yet the crazy bishop keeps insisting that our Proto is special. Pressing his dagger right against the guy's neck, Volder snaps back that these people were just conned. Without missing a beat, he drives his sword straight through the villain's foot, pinning the trash to the floor. Wasting zero time, he unloads a brutal combo of blue energy punches right into the mystic's face. With his weapon glowing dangerously bright, he gears up to deliver the final blow. Then, the Proto unleashes a massive slash that sends his opponent flying across the room. No one saw that coming. Simel gets back up holding a possessed kid, threatening to show off his god's true power. Right before their eyes, the kid's head begins to warp as the word arrogance materializes in thin air. The kid's body rapidly mutates into a massive boss monster that charges Volder with an unearthly screech. Dodging the heavy hit, our boy wonders if this guy is actually a mage, even without carrying a staff. The twisted missionary burst out laughing, yelling that magic is nothing but a cheap parlor trick to him. Flashing his bandaged hand, he tells our Proto he better pay close attention to what happens next. Levitating inside a dark evil aura, Simel declares that they're finally about to witness true power. Completely surrounded by tentacles, our boy listens as the villain formally invites him to join his dark side. Gearing up for the brawl, Volder listens as the villain lays out the rules. Scoring divine power costs your sanity, and only the truly unhinged can handle that force. He points right at a mutated local, proving that most people just turn into mindless beasts when they lose their marbles. But thanks to the Emperor, they actually found a way to master it, which Simel proudly named intelligence reduction. Our boy just stares at him deadpan, asking what kind of trash name that is, which completely triggers the bishop since it took him 3 days to come up with the branding. Pitching a deal, the missionary offers to teach him the technique personally if Falder joins up, asking if he isn't even a little bit tempted. Completely surrounded by tentacles, our MC just spits on the dirt and makes it clear he doesn't do business with cults. The guy takes major offense to that, yelling that their church is fully registered and proudly showing off the emblem he designed himself. Then he keeps pushing the propaganda, whipping out a colorful pamphlet for this so-called punctuationless church, asking if the artwork isn't top tier. The villain gets shut down when our prota replies that paper is only good for wiping his rear end. Simul freezes up in pure rage, his eye twitching as he struggles to process the disrespect he just heard. Furious, he lashes out with massive tentacles, screaming that the world needs way less rude people. Slammed into a crater, our boy listens to the villain freak out about building a new world and complaining that everybody always mocks his ideas. Stepping closer, Simul calls it a shame, but admits the higher-ups gave strict orders to keep the hunter breathing. Right beside him, the missionary confesses that at first, he really didn't get why he couldn't just finish the job. Flashing a twisted smirk, he reveals that Walder has to stay alive just to get front-row seats to the church's ultimate rise. Then he orders his goons to take Yezia's test material, while our beaten-down prota can barely mumble her name. The villain stands in the pouring rain, bragging that the era of swords is dead, and our boy just got left behind. Too wiped out to even stand, our MC just lies there, wondering where on earth this cycle even came from. He desperately reaches for his blade, thinking about everyone who trusted him, and is now sitting right in harm's way. Suddenly, a puddle's reflection shows 2 knights pulling up right in the middle of the storm. One of the riders lets Counselor Valgili know that they finally made it to the rioting city. Right after that, the duo spots our prota, passed out in the dirt, and realizes they actually found a survivor. Knight Walter instantly recognizes Volder's face, mentioning he's heard plenty of crazy stories about his reputation, asking if they should bring him in as a rescued civilian. The guy gets a super weird look from Walter in response. Counselor Valgili, an officer everybody dreads, decides she doesn't do survivors and orders our boy locked up like a common thug. Over at the Imperial prison, Valgili checks in to see if the Dantong prisoner has been properly accommodated yet. She brings up how she ordered the warden to treat our prota nicely since they really need to win his trust for a future favor. Except the interrogator, Dante, who's a total creep, tells her she showed up right on time for the welcome party. Holding a red-hot iron, he actually offers her the chance to torture Valder, even suggesting she start way below the belt. Valgili just facepalms hard, completely losing her patience with how unhinged her subordinate is acting. In the very next shot, our prota is chained up and looking wrecked, proving the executioner wasted 0 time before she got there. Annoyed, she orders her guards to drag the torturer off for a whipping, while the psycho screams that he's got way worse methods. Turning back to our boy, she drops a fake apology, but he snaps back that he's known how toxic she is since she was 16. He spits out some blood, reminding her that she was already a master at spinning lies back in the day. Valgili holds out a hand with an offer. He comes back to work for her, gets paid time off, and only pulls a few shifts a year. But our boy seats a 10 instantly, claiming he'd rather bite the dust than be on a liar's payroll. Without missing a beat, the officer whips out a glowing hot iron rod and warns him that wasn't a request, it was an order. She threatens to pick up right where the torturer left off until he finally caves and takes the job. Grabbing the sizzling iron barehanded without even blinking, our prota straight up tells her a guy with nothing to lose isn't scared of pain. And just like that, everything changed. Chucks the hot iron at the wall and orders Valgili to get out of his face right now. The officer casually pulls a flower from her pocket, noting he's still as impatient as ever, and pitches a deal just like the old days. Handing over the flower, she lays her cards on the table. He pulls off one job. She tracks down Yezi, and she wipes his criminal record clean. Caught off guard, our boy demands to know how she knows the kid's name, but she just brushes it off as female intuition. He grips the flower tight, while she points out that he wants to trust her because he's desperate to fix his own mess. Flashing a wanted poster of him looking like a villain, she asks if he seriously wants to spend the rest of his life living with regrets. Our guy folds the paper up and takes the gig, but makes it crystal clear this is the absolute last deal they're making. Gently holding his burnt hand, Valgili says things are different now, revealing that this shady church is actually her enemy too. While she patches him up, Volder flashes back to how his family got kicked out of their home by the church when he was just a kid. She explains she inherited her dad's title just to survive, but our boy gets ticked off, remembering he got tossed like trash while she saved her own skin. Holding onto his freshly bandaged hand, Valgili actually apologizes apologizes for everything, the hot iron stunt and all the bad blood from the past. Then she steps back and drops a heavy truth. At the end of the day, everyone has to face the music for their own screw-ups. Staring at his wrapped hand and trying to find the guts to make things right, our boy finally locks in the deal. Valjean flashes an imperial pardon straight to the guard, proving she literally had this entire scenario scripted from the start. He catches onto her little game and calls her a liar, though she defends herself by claiming she just "ted" a few details. Ready to roll, she signals Night Warren to head out, while that weirdo torturer yells from the floor that getting whipped by her was a total honor. Inside the carriage, the officer asks when he's finally gonna drop the attitude, and he fires back that it'll happen the second she stops making up stories. Walking into an office, our boy spots all his old gear and asks, didn't she confiscate all this stuff for the Emperor? She nods, but explains that since this is an official mission, he gets his loadout back, and he sarcastically asks if he owes her a bottle of wine now. With a massive grin on his face, our prota literally hugs his sword and admits it really brings back the good old days. Valjean even touches herself, thinking that they actually made a pretty cracked duo back in the day, you know? Except in our boy's head, the memories are way different. She basically just made his life a living nightmare. Getting back to business, she tosses out that church pamphlet and explains the rabbit hole goes way deeper than it looks. Dude, the power this punctuationless church wields isn't some basic magic. It's a whole different beast that nobody really understands. She spreads out the files, revealing this group never leaves survivors, making Volder the only guy to slip away in 20 years. Our prota just looks away and flat out refuses to read the files, complaining that there are way too many words on the page for him. Out of nowhere, a massive crashing sound makes our boy jump right out of his seat before he even registers what's happening. An arrow violently zips through where he was just sitting, making him yell that his backside would have been a pincushion if he hadn't moved. Right then, the arrow starts spinning wildly on the floor, releasing this bizarre energy all over the cabin. Surrounded by the strange aura, our boy desperately tries to track down where the attack came from, scanning inside and out. But he quickly pieces together the trajectory and yells at Valjean to look in the right direction. He clocks that the attacker is hiding right under the carriage and immediately spots a sketchy silhouette down there. With a cocky smirk, our boy decides to give a helping hand to the creep hanging out beneath the floorboards. So he violently stomps straight through the wood, scoring a direct hit on whoever was trying to play hide and seek. The impact hits so hard that the horses freak out and rear back, completely losing their minds. Swerving all over the road, the carriage nearly tips while Night Walter screams from the front, asking what the heck they're doing back there. Sword in hand, our prota yells for him to relax and promises he's about to fix the problem. Except the second he winds up for an attack, the mystery enemy bites down on his hand as hard as possible. He snatches his arm back with a massively swollen finger, complaining that biting is against the rules, and literally something dogs do. Meanwhile, the knight outside is fighting for his life, just trying to keep the runaway horses under control. Walter frantically whips the reins and screams back, asking if this chaos is what he calls having things handled. Getting tossed around like a rag doll, Valjean snaps at him to actually look behind him before he starts complaining again. This is where it gets good. Massive blades suddenly slice the roof completely off the carriage. Amidst all the flying scrap wood, the officer complains about her ruined paperwork, while the prota threatens to toss her out the window if she doesn't pipe down. A tiny foot with a bell tied around the ankle touches down lightly on the trashed remains of the carriage. Popping up from the dust, a masked assassin smirks and asks if they enjoyed their little jump scare. The elf assassin, Santu, aims her bow and stutters out a demand for them to tie themselves up so she can bag the bounty. She glares at them, warning that if they refuse to cooperate, she's more than happy to do this the hard way. While the broken rig keeps shaking, our boy clocks the sketchy mark in the elf's eyes and asks if she's part of the cult too. With zero panic, Volgili casually pours herself a glass of wine and asks Volger to keep it clean so he doesn't break her cup. Our boy steps up, flexing that 2 minutes is more than enough time to finish this joke of a fight. Except he suddenly stops dead in his tracks with a massive stomachache, whining that he completely forgot to eat after leaving jail. During that split-second slip-up, an arrow comes flying in and just barely grazes his chi. He barely dodges it and instantly charges the elf, dead serious about ending this brawl right now. Deflecting the strike with his blade, he hears the elf actually praise his skills, claiming it completely justifies his massive bounty. Then, Santu whips out an energy-charged arrow right from her quiver. In a flash, she actually wields the glowing arrow like a dagger for a wicked close-range combo. Our prota catches the strike mid-air and casually lets her know he's already seen this cheap trick a million times before. Shocked that he knows about her signature ignorance mistake move, the elf blasts a wave of green energy straight from her palm. Caught totally off guard, our boy starts feeling violent electrical shocks tearing through his entire body. That crazy green energy explodes point blank, sending the Proto flying backwards from the sheer force of the hit. He figures out that every cult member gets some cracked power from this intelligence reduction, wondering if her gimmick is enchanting arrows with magic. Seeing the elf gearing up for round 2, he decides to save whatever is left of the carriage, since this crazy girl has zero clue about collateral damage. His plan is simple. As she turns arrows into spells, the trick is cutting her off before she can shoot. So he rushes in and kicks her away, yelling that her attack speed is way too slow. With a heavy push, Arperta sends the girl flying, wanting to wrap this up fast so she doesn't accidentally hit Belgale. Suddenly, 3 arrows come soaring right at his face. The projectiles hit the mark, but he finds the speed a bit too slow, wondering if she's holding back or setting a trap. Exploding on impact, the blast hits our boy dead on, making him cough up blood and complain that this elf has lost her mind. Furious about getting kicked, she charges forward screaming that she's gonna wipe the floor with him. She throws some kind of whip, but our MC dodges at the very last second, letting the attack blow up the couch Valgili was sitting on. The weapon tears right through the furniture like it was made of paper, proving just how heavy that hit really was. Taking advantage of the chaos, Santu gears up to strike again without giving him room to breathe. But our Proto is way too slick, managing to catch the arrowhead right before it pierces his chest. At that exact moment, the glowing energy gets way too bright, nearly blinding them both. They enter a battle of raw strength, and our boy challenges the elf to see who breaks first, complaining his old wounds haven't even healed yet. Just then, a tram rolls into the city intersection, directly in their path. The runaway carriage keeps barreling forward at full speed while the knight desperately tries to prevent a massive crash. He tries to soothe the beast, whispering for the horse to slow down and just take it easy. Yet he quickly loses his patience, cursing the animal and yelling for it to run, right before getting tossed backward when the beast panics at the tram. Brutal impact crushes the carriage, sending our boy and the elf flying into the air. With a super fast motion, the Proto is already on his feet, ready for payback. He grabs Santu right by the collar and starts spinning the poor girl with all his might. Riding that momentum, he launches the assassin straight through the window of the passing tram. The elf shatters the glass completely, crashing through and landing inside. She ends up deeply dazed from the heavy hit. Later on, Valgili and Walter reach their destination, the fantasy bar. With her wondering where Volder vanished to, our boy shows up carrying the knocked out Santu, warning them it takes a lot more to get rid of him. He tries waking the elf up by force, while she dizzyingly mumbles about seeing stars and asks if she crossed over. Out of nowhere, our boy spots the wanted poster. The scene shows our Proto's poster listed as a dangerous fugitive with a bounty of 1,000 gold coins. And that's where it gets crazy. Checking out the paper, our boy spots an official stamp on the back and gets mind blown by the discovery. Furious, he gets right in Valgili's face, accusing her of hiring the elf just to test his skills. Our MC loses it and says he's the one testing her now, while the knight holds the kid back so he doesn't jump at the officer's throat. Valgili tells him to chill, mentioning that if he knew about the gifts she prepared, he wouldn't be acting so aggressive. Right then, a guy cracks the bar door open and warns them it's closed unless they know the secret. She flashes a little hand signal, already knowing exactly what to say. Whispering the password, Rainbow Pony is the best. She gets the bouncer to let them inside. The bartender begs her to change that goofy password, but she claims it's sheer stupidity is why nobody ever suspects a thing. Once inside, the Proto sits with 2 shady dudes and asks if the big surprise was just a drunk and a smoker. Valgili raises a finger and tells him to take a closer look at his new cow workers. She introduces the squad. First is Bruce, a professional hunter, and the elf Santu, who is still seeing little angels. This newly formed team is super weird to say the least, packed with pure oddballs. Taking pride in having seen a lot of bodies, Soldier Sturts even lights his cigar using someone else's beard. Knight Walter just keeps complaining about the heat, wondering if the underworld is as hot as this pub. Confused, our boy spots a sign saying he's on the roster and just asks, "Team? What team?" Starting her brief, Valgili explains that this punctuationless church is a ghost group that's been operating in the shadows for decades, but she reveals that Simul is their weak link, since the guy is a massive show-off who does everything carelessly. That makes him the ultimate clue. The squad's mission is to hunt this psycho down and expose the church's real agenda. At the table, everyone starts busting up laughing at her terrible drawing, making the Proto struggle to hold back his giggles. Completely out of patience, she tells everyone to shut it and orders them to head to Linwen University as soon as the ride arrives. Then, she hands a sealed letter to our boy, explaining it's a request from Dean Marlowe and he can only open it once they arrive. Our MC grabs the paper and admits he knows she's all about business, but he's got one vital question. With a dead serious look, he leans in and drops this gem. What even is a university anyway? Heavy silence takes over the room with a funeral vibe, since nobody there even survived 5 years of school. Losing her cool, Valgili grabs a piece of chalk and warns them she's gonna have to draw it out so they get it. She sketches a castle and explains that Linwen is the fanciest spot in the Empire, except their underground lab just stopped responding. Sadly, the Empire lost its best talents all at once, including the old dean. Soldier Sturts gets annoyed and asks why they don't just send the army to handle this mess. Coldly facing away, Valgili replies that military action is off the table. She reveals that the soldiers who went in never came back, and the few who made it out went straight to the asylum. Plus, it would be super embarrassing for the Empire to admit they lost that many people right under the Emperor's nose. Right after that, she turns around and leaves the rest to them, while the guys in the back just keep drinking like nothing happened. Our boy gets ticked off watching her walk upstairs, complaining that she always drops a bomb and vanishes. In the meantime, Bruce shows up with a bottle saying you can't expect much from clients and he better get used to it. He grabs the drink and asks if Bruce turned into a bounty hunter, though the masked guy corrects him with Chief Hunter to sound more professional. Boulder asks if he still hunts demons even after the squad disbanded, but the guy tells him it's none of his business. Bragging a bit, Bruce claims he knew the group was doomed, which is why he bailed first, all thanks to his professional vision. Dead serious, our proto warns him it's way deeper than that, and if he brings it up again, he'll snap his neck. The masked dude ignores the threat, claiming he's just joking, and tosses an item at Night Walter to change the subject. Bruce mentions he's keeping an eye on everyone and concludes this team is just a bunch of mid-amateurs. He mocks him, asking how a drunk can observe anyone, but Bruce calls his fake drinking a reconnaissance technique. Annoyed, the proto points out they're on the same squad, yet Bruce insists that keeping up the mystery is way more professional. Meanwhile, Sturts and Santu are arm wrestling with the soldier, warning her not to break her little arm, though she claims she never loses. Bruce starts analyzing Santu, calling her just a pup and noting that elves only get kicked out of their homes for one reason. He drops the hard truth. The main reason an elf gets exiled is because they're way too weak for their pack. No one saw that coming. Santu suddenly wins the match, leaving the soldier mind blown at her brute strength. Noting the soldier is a red flag too, the masked guy points out military men rarely take mercenary side gigs. Bruce guesses the guy deserted the front lines out of cowardice, adding he can't stand lazy, joke of a fighter soldiers. Next, he points over to Night Walter, who is happily wiping down the pub tables. He finds Walter super weird because Crusaders are usually just a bunch of boring guys who only know how to preach. Calling it impossible for one of them to do chores, he points out those guys normally have servants just to brush their teeth. The scene shows a Crusader getting pampered, making Bruce conclude that Walter isn't trustworthy in the slightest. So, he leans in and tells our boy that they're the only real heroes left, meaning they gotta watch each other's backs when things hit the fan. Our proto starts laughing, warning Bruce he has no idea how cracked those church guys are in a fight. He tosses the rest of his drink and says they're built different, and Bruce will never understand what he's actually looking for. Walking through the snow, he reveals he spent his whole life searching for the perfect way to die, wanting to sacrifice himself for his friends. Except the party wiped before that could happen, and the screen shows their emblem completely stained in blood. The memories hit of when he got arrested and clowned by a mob with pure hatred burning in his eyes. In another flashback, a guy and a little girl beg on their knees right in front of him while he's still chained up. He also wanted to lay his life down for Yeezy, remembering when he held her hand while the kid was drawing, but Simul kept him alive on purpose, forcing him to just watch as the crying little girl was dragged away. With a twisted smirk, the villain claimed he wasn't even worthy of catching eternal rest. Back in the present, our proto stares Bruce down and states he's not scared of dying, he just refuses to go out like trash. The new carriage arrives outside making a racket, ready to pick up this suicide squad, crammed inside with the crew. Our boy thinks about how many mistakes he made and what it cost him. A quick image of a drink flashes through his mind for just a split second. Then he remembers Valgili saying that past screw-ups don't just vanish, and we all have to face our own actions. With that thought in his head, the carriage wheels spin faster and faster straight into danger. He decides that it doesn't even matter what kind of beast is lurking under that university. Keeping a steady gaze, he promises himself that he's going to face whatever comes his way head on. Deep inside a freaky cave, a mosquito buzzes right between some creepy figures hanging from the ceiling. Glowing and swelling up with red energy, the bug looks like it's going to burst at any second. And sure enough, it shatters in a blinding burst of light and energy. Stepping out of the smoke, Simel complains about the pitch-black darkness while yelling for Connie and Ro. Out of nowhere, a bright light flips on and lights up the whole place. Shielding his eyes, he gets all annoyed and asks if the Imperial Army just raided their hideout. No one saw that coming. It turns out to be a surprise party, with Connie holding a cake and everyone yelling happy birthday. Blowing out the candles, he just thinks to himself that only a clown cares about their birth date. Connie claims a wife has to care, but Simel quickly shuts her down, reminding her the whole marriage is just a fake setup. Pushing the whole couple act, she keeps trying, but he loses his temper and yells that it was all just an act to fool the outsiders. Offering him a slice of homemade cake, he takes it just to make her quiet, only to notice a piece is already missing. Connie explains that some guy named Hua swiped a piece right out of the oven, right as Simel catches a blurry figure running off. This Hua dude is a freaky monster and the former vice principal, bragging that the cake is his now and even claims he marked it. Acting completely unhinged, he actually offers a piece to the old Dean, Ro, asking if he wants a taste. Stepping in, Simel interrupts, while Ro mutters he doesn't deserve his title anymore, asking if the villain shares cake with his students now. Shooting him a heavy glare, Ro states that Simel stopped being his student a long time ago. Throwing the truth in his face, he points out their partnership ended the moment Simel took out his own classmate, all while a monster band starts playing music. One of the beasts starts singing about good health, making Simel realize he needs to act before everyone in the room completely loses it. Wrapped up in this dark aura, he just thinks his only mistake was not getting rid of that classmate sooner. The scene flashes to Connie completely covered in red, yet she's just smiling and asking if it's raining roses. Ignoring the scolding, Simel focuses on what actually matters. The dean is working for him now. Buried in a book, Ro warns that the meteorite data still needs way more time and extra testing. Chewing on his cake, Simel rushes the old man, making it clear he knows Ro saved some students using the experiments as an excuse. With his eyes glowing, he drops a heavy threat about educating more students if the results don't show up fast. Out of the blue, Simel snaps at a rat trying to steal his dessert, ordering the little pest to get lost. Except that Master Hua jumps right on the table and uses a massive tongue to snatch the cake, screaming that everything belongs to him. Completely out of his mind, Hua reaches for the cake as the word arrogance materializes in the air. A mysterious eye pops up out of nowhere, overflowing with this freaky, otherworldly power. Locking eyes for a split second, Simel and Ro share a tense look. Ro fires up his power and blasts Hua across the room using the heavy impact of his research technique. Caught off guard by the friendly fire, Simel orders the dean to drag the crazy guy down to the testing zone immediately. Connie quickly steps in and hands the rest of the cake to Hua, who calms down instantly and even gets a happy birthday wish. Boiling with rage, Simel wonders how he's supposed to lead a church full of clowns he just plans to throw away later. Right then, the heavy sound of chains dropping from the ceiling echoes through the whole room. Two chained-up guys drop down, completely wrapped in this super mysterious aura. A shady figure tosses the prisoners onto the floor, announcing they brought exactly what the boss asked for. Over in the corner, Little Botan, riding on top of a giant zombie, starts whining about being scared of the dark. That zombie guard is Bio, the head of security who won't even let anyone kick a ball around on campus. And the kid is Botan, a total book nerd who was terrified of Modique's creepy stories. Then there's Modique, who loves nothing more than scaring the poor kid and has made him cry plenty of times. Giving the kids a quick good job, Simel orders them to scatter those dummy targets all over the basement before the army shows up. Eyes sparkling, Botan asks if he can have some cake, mentioning he never even had a birthday party at home. Shoving the dessert down happily, the boy gets reassured by Modique that the boss wouldn't mind sharing. Thinking fast, Simel decides to just let it slide as a tiny reward for their hard work. Handing a map over to the zombie Bauer, he tells him to pile the targets near the entrance to throw the guards off. He commands the big guy to wait deep in the tunnel and crush any intruders who try to sneak in. Next, he puts Botan on library duty, while the kid compliments Connie, saying the boss is super lucky to have her. Super annoyed, Simel reminds himself for the 1000th time that they are definitely not a real couple. Finally, he sends Modique down to the sewers, ordering her to blow the whole place to pieces if things go south. One of the tracking mosquitoes flies right back in, vanishing into the pitch-black cave. Landing gently on Simel's finger, the bud makes him wonder why it finished his patrol so fast. With Connie standing by, he checks the intel and realizes it's not the army that showed up, but a way more interesting squad. Flashing an evil smirk, he licks his finger and already labels the whole crew as traitors. And that's where it gets crazy. He announces that the main course has finally arrived. Panning over, the scene shows our Prota and his squad of oddballs geared up for battle, while the villain tastes the name Ding Fendel on his tongue. Both sides are completely locked in, ready for whatever goes down next. Somewhere else entirely, our boy feels a sting, smacks his own cheek, and mutters about annoying bugs flying around. Pulling up to the university, some guy in purple welcomes them, claiming the gates are always open for knowledge seekers. Spitting more small talk, he calls them heroes, all while some creepy smiling statues loom in the background. The dude introduces himself as Mallory, the dean who does a bit of everything, from watching over classes to managing the campus. Handing over Valgili's letter, Folder watches Santu celebrate her new hero title, while Sturz grumbles that he doesn't even know the lady. Except the dean clarifies the request actually came from him, and he's heavily relying on a tiny favor from our prota, bringing up the time the kid saved him from thugs. Mallory admits he never forgot that cracked level of strength. Wearing a dead serious look, he offers a spot at the university in exchange for the old dean's notebooks that vanished underground. While Santu keeps bothering Walter to play, he drops the ultimate bait. He knows little Yezi got kidnapped too. Opening his arms wide, he asks if Volder wouldn't rather give the kid a real future instead of this super dangerous lifestyle. Glancing down at the paper, our boy accepts the deal, with the dean noting their main target is a red-covered notebook, whispering for the prota to ask for a guide. Walter gets shut down when the kid gets annoyed and tells the knight to do it himself since he hates small talk. Giving a little polite cough, Mallory quickly steers the conversation back on track. Smiling warmly, he introduces Professor He, the official guide meant to lead the squad through the testing zone. The caption points out she's the only teacher who actually respects gym class hours for the third-year students. Recognizing Volder from his singles mixer, she gets cut off when he kills the vibe, explaining he was only there working as security. Flashing a cute little smirk, she asks if he's still on the market. Completely freezing up and sweating cold, our prota stammers that he has zero comments about his love life. Grabbing the kid by the shoulder, Bruce steps in and tells the lady to stop hitting on his partner. Walking away, our boy orders the team to lock in, thinking that looking for romance before a mission is just asking for a disaster. The scene cuts to a wall reading Experiment Area in what looks like fresh red ink. Staring at the massive mess near the entrance, the prota notices the vibe matches Tanze perfectly and picks their route. Deep inside the tunnel, Professor He starts scolding the whole group, telling them to quit messing around because things are about to get rough. Along the way, they spot some scribbles that the prota mistakes for magic, but the teacher quickly points out it's just multiplication tables. Holding his torch up, Sturt suddenly halts the group, warning them he'd just heard some sketchy noise coming from the dark. They stumble upon a bunch of people acting like total zombies, scribbling on the walls and praising math. Right then a monster pops out holding a weird specimen, asking if they want to join the research team too. The whole squad freezes in pure shock, having zero clue how to react to this massive level of weirdness. Wasting zero time, Bruce leaps right at the creature, yelling that the brawl is officially on. The other freaks start rushing them, rambling about keeping dark secrets hidden inside their own stomachs. Charging in for the attack, our boy yells for the teacher to keep a close watch on their six, but she screams right back, sounding super desperate as she warns Volder to watch out for what's coming next. Stepping right in front, Sturts just flattens the monster, telling the prota he can relax since he's here to play bodyguard. Annoyed, the kid scolds Sturts for leaving the teacher wide open, though the guy completely forgot she was even there. A massive brood steps forward with a heavy stomp, making the entire floor shake. Another freaky mutant shows up grabbing a zombie, screaming that it's about to reveal the result of Simel's research. This is where it gets good. Santu jumps into the mix, claiming the stage is hers now as she draws her bow. Letting loose a massive rain of arrows, she completely wipes the floor with all the enemies in one single move. Once the dust settles, the prota spots this reg mass pulsing on a downed enemy, prompting Bruce to warn him that a true pro never touches something like that. Out of nowhere, the thing starts shooting out tentacles, and someone screams that it's devouring everything in sight. That bizarre creature gets huge in a split second, making our boy yell for everyone to fall back immediately. Somewhere else, a pocket watch ticks away as the seconds keep slipping by. Chilling in his lab, Simul realizes the trap just got triggered and gears up to make his move. Flashing a wicked look, he quietly whispers the name of his technique, the sin of ignorance. Out of nowhere, a massive explosion goes off, wiping out everything in its path. The shockwave hits so hard that the tunnel our MC and the crew are in starts caving in. Grabbing Professor Heat by the arm, our boy yells at her to move, but the poor lady is frozen in fear. Unable to take the pressure, the ceiling starts cracking wide open. He throws himself right in front of the guide to act as a human shield as the rocks come crashing down. In a split second, metal chains suddenly whip out and wrap right around both of them. Turns out it's Sturts, yanking the duo away from the disaster and screaming at them to get out of there. Catching his breath, the masked guy scolds him, saying Valder would be mashed potatoes if he hadn't stepped in. But our prota claps back instantly, claiming the guide's life matters way more than his for this run. Looking at the blocked path, Sturts points out the squad got split up, but the two of them are still in the game. Professor He ignores their bickering and says their only shot is taking a side hallway straight to the library. Right then, the floor starts shaking to a deafening rumble. Going on high alert, our boy asks his partner if he also felt something massive heading their way. Would you believe it? A giant stone hand smashes right through the hallway wall. A colossal monster bursts from the hole, warning them that rule number 8 bans outsiders on campus. campus. Sweating bullets, our Prota asks if that's the security guard, and Sturt shrugs since he never went to school. The zombie guard Bauer tells them delivery guys need to wait outside while charging up his stun baton. Staring down the giant, our boy and Sturts try to figure out what kind of cracked freak they're dealing with. With a purple glow in his hand, Sturts already calls out that this mission is gonna need a bonus paycheck. Shocked, our MC asks if the mask guy also knows how to reduce intelligence. Bauer charges in yelling that Rule 43 bans, whispering, and the brawl officially kicks off. Wrapping tightly around a massive boulder, energy chains set up the counterattack. Sturge chucks the rock at the boss, bragging he learned that from some clown he sent to the lobby earlier. Whirring in pain, the zombie guard takes the boulder straight to the dome. The beast shakes it off and rushes Sturts, quoting the "no fighting in the hallway" rule. Swinging his baton, he misses because the masked dude is too slick, dodging and throwing a kick to push the freak back. The heavy hitter yells for Volder to draw aggro so he can end the fight in a single strike. Feeling a bit lost on how to help, our boy decides he's just gotta wing it. He eyes the zombie stone armor and realizes this beast is a walking tank with 0 weak spots. Dashing in for the attack, his blade barely leaves a scratch on the enemy. Frustrated by how sturdy the freak is, the recoil is so heavy his sword actually goes flying. The zombie guard turns around with bloodlust, reminding him that fighting on campus is strictly banned. Then he throws a punch so heavy it turns the stone wall into pure dust. Barely dodging, our boy notices the monster is just getting faster and stronger by the second. Sturt screams for the Prota to pop an opening already so he can go in for the finish. Panicking, our MC replies that his weapon is useless against this walking piece of rock. But right then, he spots a pipe on the wall and gets a genius idea to distract the beast. Ripping the pipe off with his bare hands, he yells, "Take this water cannon, you clown." Of course, not a single drop comes out, leaving him wondering if they shut off the water here. Watching from a distance, Sturts can only process the sheer size of his partner's blunder. Bauer grabs Sturts, and the Prota screams for Professor He to crank the valve open right now. Crying from fear, the teacher runs to turn the knob and try to save their skin. All of a sudden, a massive water jet blasts from the pipe, hitting the zombie guard right in the face. The freak gets knocked back by the impact, yelling that he's sick and tired of these students. Standing back up completely soaked, Bayer warns that Rule 66 bans wasting water and power. Our boy stays on his toes, realizing the giant is actually beyond furious now. He charges forward saying rule breakers pay the price, bringing his active stun baton with him. Smashing the floor, the strike spreads electricity all across the flooded hallway. The shockwave hits our boy point blank, frying him up. Gripping his sword and tinkling all over, he yells at the zombie that things are about to get real. Chains wrap right around Bauer's jaw, setting the stage for the counterattack. This is where it gets good. Sturts pops out of nowhere and lands a massive punch right in the middle of the monster's forehead, sending out a wild shockwave. The hit blasts the target with full force. Bauer drops to his knees, complaining in a weird voice that the back of his neck feels freezing. Wondering if it's over, our boy asks while Sturts grumbles about his hand hurting. But the hype dies fast as the zombie leaps back up and lands a nasty hook right on Sturts. Sent flying backward, the masked guy crashes through the back wall, leaving nothing but a hole behind. Blocking the beast's strikes, our Prota yells at his partner, reminding him he promised a one-punch finish. Bauer keeps pushing forward like a bulldozer, leaving our boy with nowhere to run. Stepping in just in time, Sturts blocks the attack and says he promised one punch, but never said it'd be the first, flexing his pro status. Our boy scans the room, asking if there's another pipe anywhere close. He spots a black pipe and orders Professor He to crank the valve without asking questions. Putting all her back into it, the teacher finally manages to turn the rusty knob. Out of nowhere, this gross yellow slime starts gushing out of the ground at full blast. The burst hits our Prota, who uses the chance to kick the pipe straight into the zombie guard's face. Covered in that junk, Bayer screams in disgust, trying to figure out what that garbage even is. With the beast distracted, Sturts praises our MC's big brain play, focusing all his energy into his fist. The heavy hitter warns that the ending is gonna match the start. He rushes in and throws a full power punch at the zombie, connecting perfectly. Our boy realizes this strike is chained directly to that very first hit he landed. Activating the sin of betrayal, a massive energy burst detonates right from Sturts' fist. That punch hits so hard it launches the giant guard into the air with cracked force. Bauer smashes straight through the ceiling and lands outside the tunnel, wrecking everything in his path. With a dead serious look, the masked guy explains the real danger isn't the enemy dodging the first hit. He adds that the fatal flaw is missing the second one, and in his line of work, you only get one margin of error. Walking up, our boy asks if his partner is is still in one piece after that stunt. Sturz claims he's chilling, but the Prota panics seeing his buddy bleeding and asks if he's positive. After the brawl, Sturz carries our boy, who's completely drained and just begging for a nap. Suddenly, the Prota drops his partner complaining about the stench, and the teacher points out they busted a sewer pipe. Sniffing his own clothes, our boy realizes the damage is bad, while the giant's hand starts glowing on the floor. And just like that, everything changed. The freak gets back up, telling everyone to freeze while quoting the school's main rule. The scene cuts to a flashback, where a soldier is complaining about the endless war with the northern folk. A guy in red introduces the rookie to the guard captain, calling him the new security hire. Asking for the kid's name, the captain gets a super humble reply of Bao Xiaochan. The boss just mocks him, saying it sounds like a hillbilly name and the noble students wouldn't vibe with it. He decides his name is just Bauer now, yelling that the old name is dead, no crying about it. Handing him a stack of papers with 1,000 rules to write up anyone slipping, the kid confesses he can't even read. The captain actually likes that, claiming he'll learn the hard way that breaking rules means paying fines. Watching the students, Bear thinks the main thing is keeping folks happy, but the boss insists no rules means no order. He points out rule number 1, which is protecting the students, and be sense. Bauer agrees with his whole chest. But soon enough the captain finds the guy just because he didn't wash his hair to the noble's liking. Bauer goes into shock, stuttering that he hasn't even had time to start his shift properly. From then on, his life turns into a living nightmare of fines for every little thing, from spitting while talking to greeting someone wrong. Begging the boss to stop, he gets desperate because he really needs to send cash back to his family. Years later, Bauer shows up older, hardened, and smoking a cigarette without a care in the world. With a dark and determined look, he finally starts speaking the hard truth. A rookie tries checking him by saying, "Smoking is banned there," quoting Rule 443. Resting a hand on the kid's shoulder, Bauer warns him he still has a ton to learn. The rookie stands there clueless, completely frozen by the veteran's chill vibe. Putting the cigarette out on his own arm, Bauer drops the reality check. All these rules are dead, but there are still people alive. Turning on his baton, he yells for the rookie to move so his brothers can get through. Trying to reason with him, the recruit mentions the trapped students, yet the veteran Bauer tells him to ditch them and run, while the fire burns everything down. The kid actually stands his ground and points at the rulebook, screaming that rule number 1 is protecting the students, and they can't just abandon their post. Completely losing it, Bauer yells that the rookie saw the freaky stuff downstairs, people playing with red stones and messing with things they shouldn't, telling him to go alone if he wants to catch an early game over. Mocking the guy, he says he isn't playing hero for a 3,000 salary, signaling the other guards to bail. Left alone in the chaos, the young guy wonders what will happen to those kids if he just walks away. With a sudden burst of courage, he turns around and lands a massive punch right in the middle of Bauer's face. He then screams for everyone to go back and find the students, reminding them that running away means they can't call themselves guards anymore. Claiming the rookie lost his marbles just like the lab staff, one of the guys suggests taking the kid out so they can escape smoothly. Snapping back to the present, the zombie Bauer is completely wrecked, mumbling that he can't go down because the rule to protect the students hasn't been fulfilled yet. Despite having a crushed leg, he stands back up, leaving our boy in shock over how this beast still has any gas in the tank. Our Prota draws his sword, ready for the final round, and orders Professor He to look after Bruce while he handles this mess alone. Glowing with a freaky light in his eyes, the monster keeps repeating to himself, "Go back and find the students." Inside his twisted mind, our MC and the others are actually the students he swore to keep safe. Then he charges forward at full speed, wrecking the floor with his baton, while our boy tries to figure out how he's even fighting in that condition. The guard's voice echoes through the tunnel, saying they followed the rules just to punish everyone, day after day. Striking again, he yells that now it's finally time for them, the security team, to actually enforce the rules. Our MC blocks the hit with his blade, and the electric clash lights up the whole area. Suddenly, a quick memory reveals that the old Bauer really only cared about the rules so he could stack cash from all those fines. The memory shows the veteran striking the rookie down in the middle of the fire, telling the kid to just perish already. While the other guards hold the kid down to crush his arms, the breathless rookie asks who Bauer actually cares about. Remembering another moment, a flashback shows the rookie learning to read with the kids, thanking them for teaching him the rules so he wouldn't get conned anymore. Right in the middle of that old brawl, the rookie hits Bauer with everything he's got, screaming that he does care, way more than anyone else there. Snapping back to the present, the zombie Bauer beats down on our boy, repeating that he cares the most, leaving the Prota completely clueless about this crazy talk. He then claims that the rules they made made were only designed to ruin the life of an honest guy like him. Even without getting the beast's delusion, our boy warns that he isn't throwing in the towel just yet. Standing back up with a fierce look, he remembers there are people waiting for him, and he just can't fail. Completely locked in, the Prota decides that if one strike didn't work, he'll swing 1,000 times until he finds a weak spot. Delirious, Bear screams that it's time for everyone to follow the rules, as his heavy attack crashes right into our MC's sword. In a lightning-fast move, our boy spots the exact opening he needed to finish the sprawl. Keeping his eyes locked on the target, he realizes victory is sitting right in front of him. He strikes straight at Bauer's chest, aiming right for the crack bruises punch left in that stone armor. As he drives the blade deep, the Prota mentions he's just a country boy, but he wants to figure out what these dumb rules actually protect. During his final moments, the rookie thinks, "Let's follow the rules you made," dreaming of a much fairer world. The last image shows the kid's body, alone and defeated among the other guards, being swallowed up by a green flame. Somewhere else, inside a dark classroom, a student wonders why Professor He and the hall monitor haven't come back yet. Another group of kids is hiding, with one girl terrified that the teacher got caught, though her classmate tries to calm her down. Blasting the door off its hinges, a freaky beast stomps in, screaming about using their noses as erasers for his research. More crazies show up celebrating their new formula and claiming they're gonna test the experiment right on the kids. But before the worst goes down, the rookie guard smashes through the wall and orders them to step away from the little ones. Grabbing one of the monsters, he tells the kids to run, asking them to let the dean know that old Bao didn't abandon anyone. With a swift move, he snaps the creature's neck while the students cheer him on, shouting support for Uncle Bao. The scene cuts to a shoe dripping red onto the freezing floor. Right in the middle of the carnage, the guard goes into pure shock watching one of his students get struck down right in front of him. No one saw that coming. Simul steps up with Yezi right by his side, mocking the bravery of the stinky hillbilly who tried to save the kids. Flashing a sadistic look, the villain tells him to stop fighting, claiming he only kept him breathing because his body is useful material. The flashback wraps up, revealing that Simul actually mutated the guard into the Muster Bauer just to use him as a combat puppet. Explaining his sick plan, the villain says he'll fight until he loses his sanity and turns into a beast, all while our Proto blocks another heavy hit. Simul's voice keeps ringing in his head, telling him to embrace the pain and face the past he's been running from. He warns that when the pain calls his name, he better answer, as our boy holds off an attack from a shadowy version of the monster. Back in reality, Bauer brags that his body is completely invincible, since he swore to punish anyone who broke the rules. Glancing at Sturge tossed in the corner, he wonders if that massive punch is what actually weakened him. In his new form, the monster decides to deal the ultimate punishment, because a good guy like him can't lose to a bunch of troublemakers. Our boy's sword reflects the freak, making him realize this is the cracked power you get when your sanity goes down the drain, but he doesn't back off and just calls Bauer crazy. This is where it gets good. Our MC warns he already lost to a psycho once, and won't make that mistake again, charging in with everything he's got and betting his hunter pride it's do or die. The clash between the two kicks off again with a massive blast that makes the entire floor shake. Sliding right under the giant's legs, the Proto lands a surgical slash right on the beast's calf. His strike goes to clean, slicing Bauer's bone like it's warm butter. Stumbling awkwardly, the giant guard loses his balance while our boy wastes zero time, already lining up the finishing move. The attack hits perfectly, forcing the heavy freak to crash down on his knees. With the enemy locked in place, the Proto leaps up and calls out that the neck is the next target. He winds up for the mercy kill, but the enemy spins around super fast, unleashing a heavy counterattack. Catching the dry impact, our boy gets hit so hard he actually bites his own tongue. Left with zero escape options, our MC tosses a flask into the air and bats it right at him with his blade. The item glows dangerously bright, proving this explosion is about to be massive. Right in the middle of the blast, our boy mentions that the opening he was waiting for finally showed up. Using the explosion's momentum, our Proto unloads a wicked strike with his sword. With a loud battle cry, he pushes forward, asking if looking out for others isn't the most human thing you can do. Bauer hits the deck, screaming that it's impossible since the rules were supposed to make him completely invincible. Completely exhausted, Bauer drops to his knees while Sturge is actually impressed by how much damage he took. Running on fumes, the enemy finally hits his absolute limit. He turns to Professor He and lets her know that her students are alive, hiding out in the equipment room. Bauer's body starts to fade away, and he asks them to tell the dean that Bao was the the first one to hit the front lines. Turning his energy into a portal, he crosses over knowing he fought to the bitter end for those kids, while the Proto and teacher just watch in silence. In his final memory, he sees his mom advising him to be a good man in the city, and he passes on happily, feeling like he didn't bring any shame to his family. Our boy reflects on how people change as the world beats them down, remembering that this very sword once took out the realm's strongest dark mage. Staring at the broken, stained metal, he genuinely regrets that things had to end this way. He tosses the scraps away, though the teacher tries to stop him by saying it can be fixed. Except to him, it's just junk from a forgotten era now. Down on his knees, the Proto wonders if time is gonna discard him too, but the teacher assures him he's trendy and that's not happening anytime soon. She asks if he's looking for the exit, but Ding is already busy cooking up some grub and offers her a bite. Right after that, he flips Bruce upside down and shakes the guy until he finds the canned food he was hoarding. While the dinner boils, he explains to the teacher that he and the masked guy were in the same hunter squad before everything went south. Giving her the rundown, he says old school hunter guilds died out because now the world only cares about mercenaries and folks who'll do anything for a paycheck. He tosses some beans into the pot and confesses he's made plenty of dumb mistakes in his life too, leaving the teacher completely shocked. Throwing dried meat into the stew, he admits he's no saint and spent the last few years just running from his past. But now he's decided to stop running, stirring the grub with his own sword with a serious look, saying everyone needs to own up to their screw-ups. Pouring a whole healing potion right into the broth, he mentions it's great for injuries even if it tastes like an umbrella handle. With a little smirk, he offers a cup to the teacher, who suspiciously accepts the challenge. Bruce, who seemed completely knocked out, actually catches a whiff of this delicacy. Springing up, the masked guy chugs the cup in one go and recognizes the famous good man soup, while the teacher almost throws up from the taste. Bruce claims he drinks it because it brings back memories of when he was broke but was actually a way cooler guy. Offering his partner another round, our boy stares him down with a whole new level of seriousness. The Proto points out that the enemy scaling is just bizarre now and their old methods are dead. He really needs true power. With a face full of pure determination, he states he's gonna secure that strength no matter the cost. Bruce asks if he seriously wants to learn the intelligence reduction technique, and the Proto confirms, saying it's the only way to protect what matters. Questioning if he lost faith in his own talent, the masked guy gets shut down when the kid says he's just worried about the freaks heading their way. Super confident, Bruce tells him to chill out, since a real pro can handle the job solo. Except our MC just crushes the cup and warns him he won't rely on anyone else, because this fight is strictly personal. Handing over a bottle, Bruce explains nobody needs permission to learn the technique. The trigger was already pulled the second he saw that madness up close. As he takes a sip, the masked guy drops a heavy warning. When things get rough, their god will call out and all he has to do is answer the call. Asking if that's really it, our Proto gets a nod from Bruce, who drops a heavy warning. Once you accept, your mind turns to trash and you start seeing things no human should ever witness. The scene cuts to this bizarre visual, showing a neck full of horrors that literally nobody can describe. Curious, our boy asks how he didn't lose his mind, and the masked guy explains that his sheer professionalism was the anchor keeping him grounded through that nightmare. But he makes it clear he doesn't want to see his partner like that, since intelligence reduction is a one-way ticket to the asylum. Volder questions if this god is actually real, and Bruce says probably, telling him to stop playing detective and just focus on finishing the job. He gives the Proto some solid advice, telling him to forget the legends, find a wife, have kids, and live out the rest of his days in peace like a normal guy. Staring at his reflection in the bottle, our boy sees his shattered sword and realizes he tried to change, but it just didn't work out. With a super sad look, he admits that, deep down, he's absolutely terrified of turning into someone else. Suddenly, he notices the teacher is gone and asks Bruce, who claims she was just there a second ago. Stepping out of nowhere, Professor He pops up holding a map, mentioning she walked off to give them some privacy for a real talk. He quickly asks if she found a way out, but she drops the bad news that the explosion completely blocked all the lower paths on purpose. Bruce suggests the hole the guard smashed open, except the guide warns that route is dead too since they detonated even more bodies over there. Panicking, the Proto complains they're totally cornered and begs Bruce to use his cracked skills to carve out a new tunnel. The masked guy admits it's a solid idea but points out his abilities only work on things that are alive and breathing. Repeating Oivar, our boy spots a red-eyed rat creeping right up to that sketchy potion. That little freak immediately starts shivering as it senses the heavy danger in the room. A completely unhinged smile takes over the prota's face as he stares the rat down, while Bruce just watches his buddy from a distance. Somewhere else, the nerdy kid Modique is strolling through the library carrying his flawless report card. Getting jump-scared, he drops a book, exposing a romance novel cover he was secretly hiding. Modique suddenly appears, snatching the book right out of the air and immediately scolding him for reading trash at a time like this. Freaking out, the boy asks why she isn't at her post, warning her that Simul is going to be absolutely furious. She fires back that nobody bosses her around, demanding to know why on earth he's suddenly so interested in cheesy love stories. The nerd explains he has zero clue about feelings, and since school textbooks don't teach it, he decided to do his own research, calling him a total dork. The girl hands the book back and drops a massive bomb. The giant Bauer is actually dead. Shock completely takes over the kid, struggling to process how anyone beat the divine blessing of a guard who was supposed to be invincible. That exact thought is keeping her awake, she admits, figuring Simul hid the real threat and these intruders are heavy hitters. Offering her some tea to chill out, Modique whispers that if everything goes south, they can just sneak away together. She calls him way too naive, warning him that slipping right from under Simul's nose is basically impossible. The tray slips right out of his hands when she explains the villain only keeps them breathing because they're useful, and he'll toss them both like trash soon enough. Seeing him freak out, she just tells him to relax a bit since he's always super tense and apologizing for every little thing. She points right at him, calling him the reason she can never get any rest, and hands over a school emblem. Recognizing the item, the kid remembers the old principal gave it to her to use as protection. Annoyed, she tells him to shut his mouth and just take it, explaining that his power vibes way better with that gear. Right after that, she walks off carrying a stack of books, while the nerd yells, asking if she isn't even gonna drink her usual tea. Modique flashes a super confident smile and promises she'll wipe out the intruders, saving the tea for her victory return. Dying of worry, Modique argues their odds would be way higher if they just fought side by side, but she shuts that down, explaining that if he tags along, the chances of him dying first are huge, and she'd rather bite the dust than watch that happen. Chasing right after her, the boy claims he ran the numbers and his chances of dying are basically zero, except the girl screams back that she isn't willing to risk even that tiny little percentage. Then she summons a bunch of freaky creatures all around him, making it crystal clear she won't gamble his life for anything. With a furious glare, she yells that there is no way she's letting him drop dead in front of her. Gripping a detonator, she warns that if she doesn't make it back, she's blowing the lab up and orders him to escape through the sewers. Panic totally takes over Modique, screaming that this wasn't Simul's plan and his calculations say something completely different. She actually shuts him up with a quick strike, warning him that this is a direct order with zero room for debate. Completely locked in, she announces she's heading to the West Hall to clear the library zone, and absolutely nobody is getting past her. Looking down at him on the floor, she tells him to stay chill, promising they'll meet up on the island once this whole mess is over. As she walks away, she points out his book was incomplete and mentions she left a full copy of Romeo and Juliet right by the exit desk. She wishes him luck learning all about love, while the nerd desperately screams her name. Snapping her fingers, she instantly activates her cracked ability. The dark aura wraps right around one of those spiky little creatures, making it glow like it's about to blow up. And just like that, the beast goes off, completely blowing up the library entrance, while Modique braces herself to see what these guys are really made of. On the other side, Sturz sizes up his new allies, spotting the elf Santu and Knight Walter, wondering if they're the only muscle left standing. Meanwhile, Modique watches her handiwork and realizes that just a few days ago she was a random student, but now she got a massive glow-up. Santu actually waves at one of the little freaks, calling it a tiny frog, while the girl swears nobody is ever taking anything from her or hurting the people she loves again. No one saw that coming. The tiny beast suddenly detonates with crazy force, sending a heavy shockwave and debris right at Sturz's crew. Balancing another creature on her head and buzzing with energy, Modique lays down the law. Nobody is getting past her, period. Dean Rowe gets right in Simul's face, angrily asking if he lost his mind, sending Modique and Modique to fight the intruders. Brushing it off, Simul, who once literally took out a classmate with a debate trophy, takes that as a compliment and claims he did everything so they could research in peace. Furious, Rowe screams that they are literally just kids, pure students who only know how to research and have zero real combat experience. But Simul just tells him to chill, bragging that he hand-picked those two, because he absolutely refuses to work with mid-talent. Flashing a super super sinister look, he explains that the line between love and sheer madness is paper thin, and he just ripped it wide open. When that happens, they turn into ruthless war machines, while in the background, Sturtz's squad tanks the heavy blast. Sturtz immediately shouts out an enemy warning, ordering everyone to stay behind his shield as he gears up for the incoming hit. Scanning the rubble, he wonders if that was some northern magic, but quickly drops the idea since they definitely aren't in a war zone. Right then, Modique steps right out of the smoke, leaving the whole squad completely shook when they realize the boss is just a little girl. The girl stares Sturtz down, calling him just as pathetic as she is, and drops the ultimatum: either they bounce or they die right there. His cigar just drops straight to the floor. Then he charges forward, going all out, screaming that he didn't suffer his whole life just to surrender to some little kid in a basement. Except the girl fights back with a swarm of those little freaks, catching the big guy totally off guard since he has no clue where they came from. Going off with insane force, the tiny monsters explode, forcing Sturtz to block the heavy impact with his trusty shield. Walter jumps in to cover Sansu, declaring he won't let anyone catch a scratch because that's his crusader oath. He swings for an attack, but Modique easily dodges and snaps back that if they're talking about pain, the world already hurt her enough. Gripping one of her little beasts, she states she's simply returning all the trash energy the world threw at her. She tosses the creature to counter the knights, screaming that their biggest mistake is pure ignorance. And that's where it gets crazy. The girl gets jump scared when a blinding green light pieces right through the battle smoke. Hovering midair, Santu unleashes a super powerful energy beam that sends Modique flying across the room. The elf lets out a straight-up maniac laugh, screaming to burn everything down, exactly like they did to her own home. But Modique sparks a heavy explosion that snuffs out the energy beam in a split second. Stepping out without a single scratch, the girl mocks that the hit didn't even tickle, wondering how total trash like them managed to take down Bauer. Sturtz clocks that she used the shockwave to literally blow out the flames, warning the team that her control is cracked, so they need to stay sharp. Confused, Modique realizes that Blast should have leveled an entire army, guessing the soldier must have some wild defense blessing just like the guard. Figuring the soldier and knight are going to be a breeze, she decides to focus all her aggro on the elf first, since she's way too aggressive. With a simple finger snap, the girl sets her trap, making Santu notice something brewing on the ceiling right above her head. The ceiling completely caves in as a bunch of pink freaks drop straight onto the elf, while Sturtz screams for her to hit the deck. Without missing a beat, Sturtz pops his shield and triggers a skill that draws all the aggro right to him. Every single one of those creatures detonates at the exact same time, creating a massive blast radius around them. That combo explosion fires off a beam of light so intense it literally punches a hole right through the solid stone wall. Chilling in a random minecart, Sturtz takes a puff of his cigar and mocks her, claiming that hit wasn't even close to the talismans from the north. The girl quickly realizes he just tanked all the damage on purpose and challenges him, eager to see how much more punishment he can actually take. While the card plays this super creepy nursery rhyme, the soldier is blown away by the monster's speed and orders them to hunt down the summoner. Walter rushes in before Modique can blow up any more minions, with Santu backing him up, making the girl feel like the whole world is ganging up on her again. Sweating cold, Sturtz suddenly senses that the danger is getting way too close for comfort. He yells out a frantic warning, telling them to wash their backs because she stashed those freaks inside the cracks in the walls. Flashing an evil smirk, Modique corrects him. They aren't frogs, they're her little silly breads. This is where it gets good. Every single wall blows up at the exact same time, catching Sturtz's crew completely off guard. Scanning the totally wrecked zone, she notices the elf is gone and the knight is down, so she just tells him to take a nap with that head injury. Modique gets totally shocked seeing Sturtz still pushing forward as he screams that she's out of ammo and can just wait to be deleted. Furious, the girl spawns another massive wave of minions and throws them at him, screaming for everyone to stay away from her. Except Sturtz just stares down the wave of attacks and dares her, yelling to bring them all on at once. Then a massive chain of purple explosions completely swallows Sturtz up, covering the whole area in thick smoke. Through the smoke, Modique smirks, convinced nobody could tank that kind of power since the big guy lacks Bauer's invincible defense. Suddenly, Sturtz steps right out of the mist and punches her straight in the face, warning that experience matters, and he's seen more bodies than she's seen living people. Gripping her tight, he watches the girl grind her teeth and swear they aren't getting past this spot no matter what. He stops in his tracks and checks his mouth, realizing something feels completely off in there. Panic sets in when he realizes one of her creatures somehow slipped inside, leaving him totally clueless about how she pulled that off. No one saw that coming. The little freak detonates right inside, blowing his head off in a totally bizarre scene. But his body immediately starts healing, and Sentu figures out the girl spawns these frogs in any dark spot she controls. Mocking them, the kid asks what good knowing the trick does if she can blow them up from any direction in the pitch black. Walter tightens his grip on his sword, ready to finally jump into the brawl for real. Charging forward, he deflects the incoming hits and warns that he would have bodied her already if he didn't have to protect the squad. He whips out a scroll and yells, "In your dreams," triggering the power of the knight's spirit. The paper rolls open, releasing a glowing energy with a massive magic symbol right in the center. Intense, blinding light swallows the whole room, leaving Modique in pure shock as she tries to figure out where the glow came from. Covering her face, she screams in agony while feeling her skin and eyes burn from the holy radiance. Sturts gets caught in the flash too, wondering if his allies' move hits friends as well, but quickly realizes this is their chance to strike, complaining about her eyes stinging. The elf listens as Modique, even while blind, orders her beasts to blow everybody up. Surrounded by enemies, the soldier realizes his guard won't be enough to cover everyone, briefly thinking about just saving himself. Yet he changes his mind instantly, stating that ditching a partner just isn't his style, even if they're a brand new squad. Putting everything on the line, he declares they are comrades for life and jumps right in front to shield the crew. He tanks all the explosions solo, screaming that if his mind breaks, his body will hold up, because not even the Reaper takes his friends without permission. The heavy impact launches her straight into the wall. Glowing energy forms some kind of green cocoon covered in hexagonal patterns. Modique freaks out seeing Sentu completely free, hovering in the air with that aura, while the elf warns the fatal arrow is already drawn. Hanging upside down midair, Sentu aims her bow and apologizes for keeping the Reaper waiting so long. Beaten and bruised on the floor, the girl thinks she can't catch a game over yet, since Botekin is still waiting for her. She remembers him saying that a sad person like her could find a brand new world, completely different from all the bullying she went through. Despite keeping to herself and failing classes, she realized she could actually be loved by someone, and in this old, rage-filled world. Screaming that Botekin was the only light that saved her, she unleashes a massive burst of purple energy. Except the elf's green arrow pierces right through the blast, flying straight from Modique's chest. Memories hit the girl about her family, only sending her to school to bag a rich husband and save them from being broke. Thinking back, she recalls every beating she took for being poor, and how the school kids called her a gold digger. Her desk was covered in insults, telling her to disappear and calling the poor kid a disgusting frog. Raised in the dark, she used to wonder why she was even alive and if it wouldn't be better to just end it all. Crying at her desk, she sobbed over her pen breaking again, knowing she'd catch another scolding from the principal. That was exactly when Botekin showed up, calmly asking if she was always this unlucky with her stuff. With a warm smile, he offered his own pen, saying she just had to ask, since that's what friends are for. Modique burst into tears, totally failing to understand why this guy was being so nice to her. She questioned why he wouldn't just let her fade away alone in her corner, just like everybody else wanted. Weeping heavily, she screamed, asking why he had to give her a reason to live. Right as the elf's arrow pierces her, the heavy shot rips right through her body, dropping the girl to her knees while she bleeds heavily. Before passing out, she wishes she had asked him out more and triggers her final trap card, the Hatred's Mistake. A purple grid suddenly appears, trapping Sturts' crew inside a dimension of pitch-black darkness. Sturts yells at Walter to pop the light, but the knight fires back that his scroll isn't doing a single thing against this void. Then, Modique explains she traded the last of her sanity to spawn this lightless realm, where absolutely nothing shines. Using her final breath, she warns that the strikes are about to come from every angle, and they won't see a thing. The big guy tells his squad not to panic and stick close, assuming she can't see them either. But, flashing a twisted smile, she asks why on earth she would ever need to see where they are. "I just gotta blow up everything the darkness touches," she thinks to herself, unleashing an attack that covers the whole room. Right in the middle of the fireworks, Sturt screams that the kid completely lost her marbles and he's hitting his limit. Sentu quickly assures Sturts that everything is under control and he can leave the rest to her. Super worried, Walter tries to stop the crazy girl, pointing out she doesn't even have a target to aim at in this void. But the elf just claps back, bragging that she doesn't need any target to deal massive damage. In that exact moment, a flashback hits her about an energy flash that completely changed her life. Her memories show her fighting off an entire monster army right in the middle of the woods. To her, everyone out there was just target practice, and she roasted every single one of them with zero mercy. Flashing a glowing symbol in her eye, she activates the ignorance mistake, burning field. A bizarre rain of green flaming arrows starts pouring straight from the sky. Modique wonders for a second if the elf is trying to carve out a safe zone, but quickly realizes that's just nonsense. Exactly as planned, the green flames pass right through the girl, who points out they are merely trying to survive. She drops the hard truth. Unlike them, she accepted biting the dust for the person she loves a long time ago. The summoner warns that showing off her position in the dark was the absolute dumbest move the elf could make. Wasting zero time, her beasts charge in hard, snuffing out the green flames along the way. Santu panics the second she feels those tiny creatures sticking to her body just like ticks. And that's where it gets crazy. Every single one of them detonates at the exact same time, right on top of her. The elf roars in agony from the ridiculous impact of those blasts. Yet she quickly starts laughing like a total psycho, hyped out of her mind to find someone to play with. She states that if the price for fun is her sanity, she'll gladly hand it over, as long as the game keeps going. Noticing the other two are getting crushed by the blasts, Modique decides to focus all aggro on the elf to ruin her fun. The kid charges up her power and fires off a heavy green energy beam straight at Santu. Multiplying in midair, the attack bombards the elf from every angle, trapping her with nowhere to run. Even while taking hits, Modique smirks and tells the elf she messed up, because that single shot gave away her exact spot in the lightless realm. Having her target locked, Modique charges up a purple energy bomb right over Sturz's crew, sending everyone into pure panic. She triggers the dark furnace explosion, setting off a wicked blast of pure dark energy. Once the dust settles, she spots the squad on the floor and thinks of Modique. Super relieved he's far away from this slaughter. Coughing up blood, she regrets never rolling a defense skill, especially since her boy is so fragile. But staring down at the beaten bodies, she finally gets it. Her cracked power is born and unleashed in total darkness. Somehow Sturz is still breathing, and even looking wrecked, the mark in his eye glows ready for a counterattack. She pictures Modique's smile and thinks that, right when the void shattered, she finally saw the light. Almost like magic, an intense light blows up right in her face, completely proving her point. Despite the blinding flash, Modique stays on her feet, walking slowly through the leftover purple energy. Getting closer, she gets seriously shook seeing they are still alive and, even worse, protecting each other. With a heavy glare, she warns they are just sheep in a slaughterhouse and should just throw in the towel. However, Sturz yells from the dirt that as long as he's breathing, that defense line isn't falling no matter what. Modique simply promises to wipe out the backup too, grabbing his head to deliver a point-blank explosion. The purple energy goes off hard, catching the big guy's face completely flush. Blood splatters from the heavy impact, but Modique's expression is just pure hatred mixed with shock. Unbelievably, Sturz stays right on his knees, laughing in her face and asking if she's running out of gas. Driven by pure rage, she summons the Tide of Obsession, a massive wave of monsters, to swallow Sturz up for good. Showing zero mercy, the purple tide rushes forward at full speed to completely run over what's left of the soldier. Over in another zone, our boy tears right through reality while a voice asks if they're even going the right way. Already inside the dimension, the teacher complains about the pitch black, but one of the guys lights a torch and tells them to trust his skills. Out of nowhere, Modique pulls up with a sadistic little smirk, asking if these are the reinforcements Sturz was bragging about. Her voice echoes around, welcoming the squad to her world and inviting everyone to taste her pure resentment. Taking a trip back in time, the memory shows her and Modique fighting side by side in a street brawl. After the beatdown, she tells him he shouldn't have gotten involved, but he just smiles and says that's exactly what friends are for. Later on, he asks what her big dream is, and she claims she wants to study and become an accountant for rich folks. Smiling softly, he clarifies he doesn't care about what her family wants. He wants to know what she truly desires in her heart. She takes a second to think, flipping through her notebook, and confesses her real dream is to visit the Celestial Island. With her eyes sparking, the girl explains that her absolute biggest wish is to see paradise up close. Flipping through a book, he explains there's a rainbow bird that only lives on that island. Modique makes a promise. The second he gets some cash, he'll take her there to see it up close. He asks what she wants to do with her life, but Modique just stutters, super shy, and says she'll tell him later. But reality was a nightmare, and she remembers when some bullies chained her up, ordering her to stay away from the boy. One of them mocks her, bragging her dad is on the council and Modique's family is trash, warning that snitching means heavy trouble. Even completely beaten, she screams she's not taking it quietly anymore, because now she's got a mission, making Boteken's dream come true. Nobody is ruining his dream, she roars, and that furious shout echoes right into the present as she glares at her new enemies. Gearing up, the two backups get ready, one holding a baton and the other a torch to face the kid. Wade, who is still in the game, screams a desperate warning, stay out of the dark, because she pulls exploding monsters from the shadows. But time runs out fast, and 3 of those tiny freaks are already stuck right to the knight's helmet. No one saw that coming. The heroes watch in pure shock as the beasts detonate everything in a snap. Modique gives Zero room to breathe and launches another attack, yelling for them to shut up and stop talking. Right in the middle of the strike, she catches a wicked headache, realizing keeping this lightless realm up is charging a heavy toll. Surrounded by her beasts, she decides to wrap this up fast and sends another monster wave straight at them. A purple tide crashes down hard on the duo, who just stand there staring at each other. Our boy closes his eyes and fully focuses on his hearing to track down where the danger is coming from. Pointing the way, the masked guy agrees, saying he'll take the front while tagging one of the beasts with the blacklist, and then he throws a punch so heavy the shockwave vaporizes that entire horde in one go. Modique goes into shock, seeing an energy wall completely blocking her attack. Thinking fast, she steps right on one of her own creatures, making the beast glow dangerously bright. The blast launches her into the air, making her wonder what kind of bizarre power makes this dude so cracked. Mid-air, she figures out how Bauer went down and swears not to let these dangerous guys get through. Except our boy's ears catch a brand new sound. The attack is coming from every single angle now. Suddenly, a whirlwind of monsters surrounds the crew, closing the trap in a deadly way. The masked guy praises his partner's hearing, asking him to guard the teacher while he sets up the counterattack. He warns the next punch is gonna be top tier and smashes the floor, carving out a crater of red energy. A blast creates a safety bubble for the squad, while the world around them crumbles in explosions. Seeing her plan fall apart, Modique punches the dirt with all the hatred in her chest. But our boy catches onto the trick, calling his partner out for taking a tiny step back during the impact. Modique smirks, realizing she backed off on instinct, yet gets shocked the dude heard a single footstep in all that noise. Without missing a beat, our MC points and yells, she's at 11 o'clock about 20 meters out. The masked guy gets hyped over the precision, calling him a true pro, and whips a red energy chain straight at her. She panics seeing her guard drop and tries everything to stop their push forward. Yet she starts roaring in pain and coughing blood, feeling her sanity slip while hearing rats singing in the walls. In a flash, the masked dude lassos the kid with the chain and yells, "Game over, got her." He pushes forward with the blacklist active, ready to deliver the final blow to the girl. With a victorious glare, he warns she's officially marked, and there's nowhere left to run. "This right here is professionalism," he shouts, moving in to finish the brawl for good. Modique goes into full panic mode, knowing if that punch lands, it's a wrap. She desperately tries to save herself while getting slammed into a wall of energy spikes. With fiery eyes, she screams this can't be the end yet, and she just needs to hold on a bit longer. Suddenly, the masked guy notices even the kid's mouth is full of shadows right before a beast crawls out of it. The monster explodes right in his face, knocking the heavy hitter backward with cracked force. Seeing his buddy take a hit, our boy rushes in to smash the crazy girl's teeth, making sure the fight goes on. Surrounded by monsters, Modique loses it and screams for him to stay back and keep his distance. In a lightning-fast move, our prota slices through several beasts with his blue energy blade. He steps up and slashes the girl's arms, leaving the poor kid completely immobilized. With his sword ringing, he lets her know even her leg tendons are completely ruined now. Realizing she's still conscious, he decides to wrap it up, but she uses a blast to dodge and challenges him. "Then bring it on," she screams, and both of them clash directly with their hands blazing with energy. In a slick move, our boy dodges her strike, slips right under, and gears up for the counterattack. His blue eyes shine with that pure drive to win as he gets into position to strike. But right in the middle of the brawl, he yells for Bruce to focus on 3 o'clock, 10 meters away, telling his partner not to worry about him. Completely clueless, Modique wonders how the guy is even fighting with his face all wrecked. Bruce, even running on fumes, claims backing down is for the weak and a true pro never folds when it counts. Then while the prota and the teacher pull back, he orders the trash to step aside and leaps right at the monsters. With his fist blazing in red energy, he declares that the kid's madness officially ends right now. Except Modique is slick, grabbing one of the beasts off her shoulder and warning she'll need a loan. She uses the freak as a cannon and fires off a purple energy beam that hits our boy dead on. The blast sweeps the whole place, tearing open a massive flash of light right through the rubble. He gets sent flying while the energy detonates everything around him, taking Bruce's heavy punch flush. Modique spits blood and gets launched backward from the sheer impact. The explosion's glare swallows the girl completely, lighting up the entire tunnel. When the light fades, the lightless realm crumbles, and our beaten Proto wonders if the nightmare is finally over. He gets up totally racked, and Bruce asks if he's in one piece. The kid nods, but mentions he's gonna need a new dentist. The teacher shows up with a medkit she found nearby and orders them to hurry up and save the rest of the crew. Suddenly, she spots Modique facing away, all bandaged up, and asks if it's really her. The kid confirms, saying she knew the guide would return. But when she turns around, Modique is covered in red and drops a lifeless gaze, claiming it's way too late now. In her memory, we see the cornered students, with Modique gripping a blade, desperately trying to protect everyone. The priest steps up laughing at their fear, and Botaken tries to bribe the villain with his dad's cash, but the monster doesn't even care. He reveals he only spared them because the boss asked, but he can't just let them walk away either. The villain claims he senses their desire and grabs Modique, saying she fits the exact profile he's looking for. He notices the hatred in her eyes and asks who all that heavy resentment is meant for. The memory shifts, and he asks if the anger is directed at the girls who bullied her back in school. He figures she's terrible with people, and while grabbing one of the bullies, claims the two of them are actually a lot alike. The priest points out that looking at those girls, Modique only sees her own weakness from when she couldn't fight back. Then he promises to hand over the power for revenge, and with his eye glowing red, lets her know she is the chosen one. Whispering in her ear, he calls settling scores the best feeling in the world, and spawns a beast right into her hand. Back in the present, Modique regrets that if the teacher had been there sooner, none of this would have happened. The teacher begs for forgiveness, explaining the military blocked everything off, and she thought about them every single night. Nodding along, Modique agrees that payback is sweet, but warns that the price tag is just way too high. And she mentions you only realize the cost later, remembering when she used that cracked power to crush her abusers. In the end, just to score her revenge, she ended up losing the one thing that actually mattered. Botaken watched it all in pure horror, seeing her wipe out the past but drag their future down with it. The memory wraps up with the kid's panicked face, and Modique says that by the time she finally snapped out of it, it was way too late, as we catch the reflection of her power in the nerd's broken, blood-stained glasses. Snapping back to reality, with purple light bursting from her chest, she begs the teacher to run and keep everyone away from Botaken. On the outside, we see a gate closing while scientists wheel a freaky creature away on a stretcher. Inside, the teacher and the villain argue over what geometric shape to use for their brand new experiments. A close-up reveals the creature is the Hammer of Hatred, glowing with super unstable red energy, and just like that, everything changed. It detonates, unleashing the song of eternal hatred that shreds everything nearby. He dives in front to save Botaken, screaming for Bruce to get the teacher out of there right now. The impact hits so hard the ceiling starts caving in, even smashing the exit sign. Gripping the kid tight, he orders him to listen up, refusing to lose a single teammate ever again. Right after that, the Proto shoves the nerd toward the emergency exit while the walls turn to straight dust. The explosion is so massive it completely blows the roof off the entire building. From a safe spot, some big shot watches it all go down through a window and freaks out, ordering Valgili to fix this mess. Sprawled in the rubble, Modique hits her absolute limit and complains that this nameless god is a total pain. Floating in a green and pink aura, she thinks maybe she really is a bad girl who deserves this kind of ending. She admits she just can't let go of her hatred or Botaken as a purple spark drops onto the freezing floor. Out of nowhere, the shot cuts to a face bleeding heavily from its eyes. Except it's not our boy. It's Simul coughing up a ton of red, completely in shock. Rushing in to help, an assistant asks if he's been pulling way too many all-nighters. Flashing a twisted smirk, he explains someone just triggered his blood lotuses, 6 of them all at once. He immediately orders Kalini down to the sewers to take out anyone trying to sneak away. Left alone, Simul starts thinking, sensing Modique just bit the dust and wondering what that squad is actually planning. Over in another spot, a bearded dude turns on a device, muttering that they're really just a bunch of kids. Figuring these rookies has zero will to fight, he just watches as our Proto pushes through the sewers. A quick flashback shows Modique telling the kid to run down the tunnel while she clears the way. Back in the present, he reaches the door and spots the busted lock, proving his friend actually kept her promise. Staring at the light from the exit, he thinks about going back to being his usual straight-A self. Except he just freezes up, stressing over that massive explosion and wondering if Modique's sitting there hurt and all alone. Memories of Professor He pop up, reminding him that some things matter way more than just books. Turning his back right on the exit, the kid sprints jumps back inside, yelling that he has to help her. Even with the odds stacked at 1 in a million, he simply doesn't care at all. Desperate to save the girl, he dashes at full speed through a hallway completely flooded with red water. Meanwhile, Kalimi camps the exit, letting out a relieved sigh that she won't have to beat up any kids today. Still, she chooses to hold her ground, needing to make absolutely sure Simel stays safe. Right then, light leaks through the door before a fist punches straight through the wood, leaving her in pure shock. Lurking on the other side, some guy with shark teeth lets out a super sinister chuckle. Without hesitating, the intruder completely shatters the rest of the door using one brutal strike. Moving crazy fast, the guy lands a heavy punch that sends Kalini flying across the room. Furious, the assistant gets back on her feet, demanding to know what kind of psycho just crashed her spot. Flashing some serious style, the dude introduces himself, claiming his name is Camus Bode. He breaks it down, saying Camus is his real name, while Bode is just a title the North slapped on him. Completely frozen in fear, the assistant starts sweating cold just from feeling the guy's heavy aura. Wearing a wild smirk, Camus announces he's just here to drag Ding Fandale back home. Dropping the lore behind his title, he reveals he's actually known as the Hound of the North. Both of them lock eyes down in the sewers, completely geared up for an epic brawl. His blade glows as he warns that the squad is back together and the lamb is returning to the flock. Grinning hard, he orders her to take him straight to Simel right this second, no stalling allowed. Out of nowhere, this freaky ghost-like sheep image just pops up floating in thin air. Spotting those phantom sheep, Kalini locks in, refusing to let this dangerous dude anywhere near her boss. Flashing a dead serious glare, she readies her stance to fight this out to the bitter end. Yet the second she blinks, the guy literally vanishes from her sight, leaving the woman totally clueless. And just like that, everything changed. He spawns right behind her, drives a heavy thrust straight into her chest. Right as it hits, one of those phantom sheep actually starts drinking the red-stained sewer water. Pinned in place, the assistant can't even process why she's feeling such an absurd amount of pain. Camus breaks it down, explaining his silent lamb technique takes fatal damage and multiplies the pain tenfold. Completely mind-blown, she twists and turns on the floor from the sheer agony. Still, she somehow scrapes together enough strength to swing her lantern, screaming that she'll never fold. That weird item pops open, unleashing a massive swarm of glowing bugs right at him. Swarming all around Camus, the bugs don't even faze him as he just flashes a cocky little smirk. He casually asks how she's even still fighting back, but Kalini snaps back that all this pain isn't even close to the nightmare she's already survived in her life. Shutting her down, Camus pierces her again and demands to know exactly where Ding and Simel are hiding. Totally broken, she screams that Ding is close by and begs him to stop, crying that the bishop is gone. Ignoring her tears completely, Camus unloads a barrage of red energy blades, shooting her a furious glare. He warns that she's only catching a game over when he says so. Moving in a blur, he delivers a deep slash right across her face. That strike hits so hard it launches the assistant all the way down the tunnel. Just as he raises his blade for the finishing blow, a burst of red energy locks his arm completely midair. Simel steps up holding Kalini, warning Camus to drop the act before both of them get sent to the lobby together. Laughing right in his face, Camus claims he never expected to hear a cheap threat like that coming from the bishop. Rocking that know-it-all expression, Simel guarantees he holds this entire situation right in the palm of his hand. Brushing it off, Camus says he isn't here to argue, claiming his only goal is having a little chat with Ding. Tossing a random item to Simel, he orders the guy to deliver a message. Tell Ding that the Hound is back to hunt him down. Flexing that he never makes empty threats, he turns his back and tells Simel that if he's mad about it, he can catch him over at Snowy Mountain. Deep inside another part of the underground, a pile of heavy rubble randomly starts shaking. Bursting straight out of that massive mess, a hand punches through the dirt with insane force. Soldier Sturts finally breaks free from the debris, screaming at the top of his lungs to let everyone know he's still breathing. Calling out for Bruce, he immediately gets scolded by the masked guy who grumbles that he's standing right next to him. Bruce explains he popped his intelligence reduction at the very last second, otherwise they both would have been flattened into stone pancakes. Running low on patience, he yanks his partner out of the hole using a stiff karate chop. Sturts asks about the rest of the squad and Bruce guesses everyone got scattered, adding they just gotta hope the team is still in one piece. Our boy nods, saying he totally gets how this works. In a war, someone always gets left behind so the rest can push forward. Bruce agrees while lighting a cigar off a nearby campfire, recalling how the first platoon got wiped without even seeing the boss's face. Taking a heavy drag, he drops a hard truth. The saddest part isn't dying in battle, it's biting the dust without even knowing why. Caught completely off guard by the deep talk, our proto listens as Bruce jokes that even he didn't know he was this poetic. Bruce mentions the cold weather just makes makes a guy thoughtful, but our boy kills the vibe by asking exactly what he used to start that fire. Super casually, he answers that he just burned a book, holding up the cover to prove his point. Pure shock washes over our boy, and as he watches the pages turn to ash, he finally connects the dots on where they actually landed. Panning out, the shot shows the two of them just chilling by the fire right in the middle of all that wreckage. Would you believe it? They crashed straight into the middle of the university's underground library. Out of nowhere, a voice calls from the dark as red eyes pierce the shadows, giving our prota a massive jump scare. Both guys jump to their feet ready for a brawl, demanding to know what kind of freak is hiding in the dark. Turns out it's just the nerd Modique, begging them not to swing and asking if anyone's seen Modique walking around. Flashing her profile card, he describes the hooded girl, mentioning she's roughly about his height. Bruce asks if he means that crazy chick who tried to blow them up, dropping the cold truth. That kid died a while ago. Going completely pale, Modique mutters about her being gone, arguing that this is totally wrong because the book doesn't end like this. He desperately insists she couldn't have died, claiming they are the good guys, so the ending is supposed to be totally different. Flipping the book open, he points out that the hero always talks the villain into switching sides and finding redemption. Losing his patience entirely, Bruce kicks the kid away, screaming that he's just a fairy tale obsessed nerd, since enemies only settle things with a body bag. Modique tearfully explains they both knew the nameless god's power was a hazard, and he was seriously banking on them to save her. Gripping his book as tight as possible, he demands to know why they took her out, insisting nobody was supposed to get hurt here. The kid's face literally warps from pure hatred as he desperately screams that reality isn't matching up with his stories at all. Spotting the dark mark on the nerd, our prota warns Bruce he's hostile. Wasting no time, the soldier draws his weapon, claiming there are 0 civilians in a war zone. Completely unhinged, Modique drops an amulet onto the floor, screaming that the plan failed since this isn't how the story goes. Hitting the dirt, that random object instantly starts radiating this super sinister purple energy. This is where it gets good. The amulet detonates into a heavy purple shockwave, launching our boy and Bruce backward. Both guys try to brace themselves, but that energy blast hits way too hard to just tank it. Flashing to a vision, the old dean senses someone triggered his emblem and wishes his favorite student good luck. He hypes Modique up to fight with the university's pride, right as a massive swarm of freaky beasts crawls straight out of the shadows. Our boy yells out a warning about the dark magic, but Bruce steps up, claiming he's got crowd control while the prota focuses on the nerd. Modique warns that even though his cracked power takes a minute to wind up, it's more than enough to wipe them both out. Triggering the sea of learning, he launches a crazy flood of papers covered entirely in math formulas. Bruce smirks, bragging that dealing with normal cultists is a breeze, but these freaks cooked up by dark magic are exactly his house specialty, brutally smashing a green potion right onto the floor. Roaring at the top of his lungs, he claims he's the absolute best exorcism specialist this empire has ever seen. Rocking a quick little smirk, our boy admits that Ding really is the most OP hunter in this entire world. While the creature burns, our boy notices it resisting and realizes the freak actually merged with the bizarre power of the Nameless. Out of nowhere, another monster spawns right next to him, and things get seriously dangerous. Grabbing the prota, the abomination starts screaming complete nonsense about punctuation. Bruce yells that he doesn't just rely on exorcism and instantly sets up the counterattack. With a heavy shield bash, he launches the beast away and warns it to stay far back from his partner. Looking completely confused, Modique mutters that his technique was supposed to fry their brains with knowledge, unless the two of them are completely illiterate, as a goofy drawing of the duo pops up right in the nerd's book. Since these guys never even passed elementary school, they push forward with 0 fear of any intellectual illusion. Modique accepts the challenge, claiming that if they're dumb, there's still plenty of time to learn through pure despair. Whipping out the hammer of knowledge, he chucks a massive advanced math textbook right at them. After sizing up the duo, he decides to focus all his aggro on the guy who looks like the biggest meathead. Bruce and the monsters get completely surrounded by a crazy flood of papers covered in formulas. Surprisingly, the technique actually works so well that the creatures lose their minds and start brawling with each other. Rushing in to help, our boy watches the formulas pass straight through Modique and gets super confused. And just like that, everything changed. The papers stick right to the prota, sending him into a panic as he tries to rip that homework off his skin, chuckling about missing his shot. The nerd claims it doesn't even matter, since the sea of learning is way too deep anyway. He warns that the prota is about to drown right there as the formulas start burning our boy's skin, making him roar in agony. Meanwhile, Bruce is practically blindfolded by the flying papers, but screams that his hearing is still guiding his strikes perfectly. Gearing up his potions, he warns the freak squad to back off right before dropping the mercury holy water. The masked guy lobs the green liquid, melting the beasts down while they scream random nonsense about math Olympiads. Suddenly, the demon hunter completely freezes up, wondering why on earth his brain is suddenly flooded with complex math equations. Super worried, he rushes over to our prota, grabbing him to check if the kid can still see anything. Our boy groans that he's still breathing, but his eyes are stinging like crazy, almost as if they were literally catching fire, and a wild burst of blue flames just completely engulfs him. Sporting a super bizarre look, our MC cries out in pure despair when he realizes the world around him just morphed into a nightmare. He finds himself completely alone, trapped inside some freaky digital maze packed with glowing blocks. A weird math problem about chickens and rabbits pops up, but there isn't a single animal in sight, just raw code. Right after that, he realizes the thing locked inside the cage is actually a colossal boss monster. The scene glitches to a leaking water tank, leaving him wondering when that useless thing is finally gonna fill up. Flashing right into his head, the answer hits him. It's never filling up, because even with the faucet wide open, the stuff draining out the bottom is just pure crimson red. Completely shook by this twisted illusion, our boy stands there covered in red splatters. Refusing to play along with this logic puzzle, he draws his blade and charges the cage, dead set on slicing his way out. He swings with everything he's got, making the beast roar, while a disembodied voice tells him to double-check his math. Since the heavy strike didn't even leave a scratch, he finally gets that he's locked inside a seriously cracked mental illusion. Botikin's voice echoes through the void, teasingly asking if our prota is enjoying all this brand new knowledge. Firing back that this is the dumbest thing he's ever seen, our boy screams at himself to just snap out of the trance. He gets super confused, realizing he isn't actually feeling any pain or sporting any fresh cuts. But suddenly, the exact spot he just slashed starts gushing red straight from the floorboards. The massive red tide rises up fast, leaving our poor prota completely frozen in pure dread. Without warning, a colossal wave crashes down and swallows him whole while he screams for his life. Watching with a smug grin, Botakin claims the ultimate fate of all learners is to just drown in their own knowledge. Our guy vanishes into that crimson sea, fighting desperately just to catch a breath inside the hallucination. Gripping his game over book, the nerd declares that Ding is officially finished and there's zero mercy left. He unleashes a heavy rain of exams and documents to send the prota straight back to the lobby. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the nerd yells that our prota just failed the ultimate test of life. Yet our prota refuses to fold, claiming he's not getting a game over in some lame illusion, as a bright light sparks from the ground. His mind flashes back to the Tanzai crew he needs to avenge, and the promise he made to track down little Yiza. Even if this road is a one-way trip, he swears he's going to push forward, doing things his own way. Armed with that heavy resolve, he dives straight into the darkest parts of the illusion to carve out an exit. Except instead of fading away, he stops dead in the void, snaps his eyes open, and roars that he's still in the game. No one saw that coming, sporting a dead calm look and a glowing red mark on his forehead. Our boy finally secured a cracked awakening, all thanks to that like you just dropped on the video.